Hey, wine mermaids. This is the Peace, Love, and Wine podcast, bringing you happy hour conversations with awesome women on self-care, sisterhood, and creative living to reduce stress and maximize joy. Life is short, so grab a glass and get ready to sip, sparkle, and make a splash. Make sure to visit peaceloveandwine.com and enter your email to receive VIP deals and get your free self-care download. Now, here's your wine sister hostess with the mostest, Tiffany Humfeld.
Hi, and welcome to the Peace, Love, and Wine podcast. I am your hostess, Tiffany Humfeld, and I am joined today by author and speaker Laura Briggs. Welcome, Laura. Thanks for being here.
Hey, thanks for having me.
I was just watching your TEDx talk, too, and you are the author of a book that we see behind you there, Freelance, Start Your Own Freelance Writing Business. So you have a little bit of an interesting story as to how you got into freelance writing. It wasn't really a real direct path, right?
Yeah, it wasn't something that I ever really thought was super possible. You know, I bought into a lot of the things about starving artists, and it's super hard to be a creative. And so I studied a lot more traditional things in school and was on path to become an educator. And after 1 year of working as a teacher in a middle school, I was like, I can't do this anymore. And I definitely can't do it for another 29 years to hit retirement. So I became a freelance writer accidentally, stumbled upon it, and was using it pretty much as a side hustle. And it grew to the point where I started to think about maybe taking it full time.
And what kind of writing did you start with? Like, what was your first article that was published?
The first thing I wrote was something about helping people qualify for disability applications. It was like a short little ebook type of a thing. I did a lot when I got started. I tried a lot of different things to see what I liked and what I didn't like and what paid well and where were clients easy to deal with. And I really settled on blogs after writing a lot of different types of content.
So you help other people write their own content for their blogs then? Is that accurate?
Yeah, I'm essentially a ghostwriter. So a lot of what I write is published under my client's name or under their business name. But I wrote it, even though it's being presented like it's theirs.
Okay. Have you actually done that for full books as well?
I have. I've ghostwritten 4 different books, and that was why it was kind of exciting to write my own book, because I knew a little bit about the process and how much research and work went into it and all of that. But it was definitely different doing it for myself versus for a client.
Actually, I have a friend right now who's looking for a ghostwriter, so I'll have to put you in touch.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
So one of the benefits, I think, of freelancing that actually work in your life is you mentioned that you move a lot because you're a military family. So that makes it hard for you to keep your career going in one place, right? Because you're sort of reliant on the moving that you guys have to do as part of your husband's work.
Yeah, I am in my brand new workspace in the 8th house we have lived in the last 10 years. So we just finished move number 8. And it's crazy. I mean, honestly, it never is fun, but you do get used to it. And we've gotten better every single time we move. But I don't know what I would do if I had to go out and plaster the town with my resume and go on a bunch of interviews every time that we relocate. And I'm sure that wouldn't look good on my resume either, that I'm always in a place for a year and then I leave, even if that wouldn't have been my fault. So having a flexible career and something that really travels with me where I can just pick up wherever we're at is really helpful for our family.
Yeah, I bet. And do you have kids as well?
We do not have kids. No, we do not. So that would complicate things even further, I'm sure.
Right. I don't have kids either, but yeah, that moving, I can imagine there's a whole other multiple layers probably of complication there with kids, right?
Yeah.
How about friendships? How hard has that been on friendships and maintaining sort of sisterhood and community?
It's definitely hard. I found that one of the most effective things for me to do is to seek out other entrepreneurs and entrepreneur groups when I move to a new area, because not only do we move a lot, but there's also a lot about running an online business, as I'm sure you know, that makes it can be isolating in and of itself. And there's also a lot of things that people who don't run an online business wouldn't really understand. So it's nice to be able to plug into a new community as soon as possible with people who have, like-minded ideas and goals. So that's been one way that we kind of do that. And then, of course, like with FaceTime and Skype and tools like Zoom, you can keep in touch better than ever before with people as well.
Right. I know. Thank goodness for the internet. And I mean, I think that's part of your talk, really. Your TEDx talk talks about how technology is changing the way everybody does business, right?
Yeah, even traditional employment situations, like people who would normally work in an office, more and more employers are asking, like, do we even need this office space? Does this person need to be working 40 hours a week? Like, what if they move? Could they work remotely? Or how would it work if we had a remote team, or if we supplemented our in-office workers with freelancers? So I think we're able to have more conversations and considerations than ever before, because it just wasn't an option in the past. But now we have all these different choices, and it's asking people to sort of step into that role of, how can you be more efficient and effective? Because the old way of doing things isn't the way you have to do things anymore.
Right. Yeah. And even I think 5 years ago, it wasn't as accepted as it is now. I'm trying to remember when my husband had a real job. He's self-employed. But he was trying to work from home, a couple days a week, just so that he wasn't having to commute, and he would get so much more done because he wouldn't have the distractions.
Yeah.
He just couldn't get his company to be on board with that. So, that might be a bigger problem with like that company, I guess. But also, I think it's just getting more and more accepted that work will actually get done.
Yeah, I think a lot of traditional companies that have had everybody report into an office for the longest time thought that you couldn't be productive if you were working from home, that, the person would be like doing their laundry or, leaving the house for 3-hour lunches. But if you think about all the amount of lost time in a traditional workday, just with phone calls ringing in and stopping you whatever you're doing, or that coworker walking by asking you a question, and meetings you don't really need to be a part of. Mm-hmm. There's a tremendous amount of time wasted in the traditional workspace. So it's like, why do that when it's like, if the amount of actual work I'm doing per day is like 3 to 6 hours, like, let me do that at home, get it all done, have no distractions. It's going to be better quality anyways as a freelancer, and then not have to worry about, like you said, that commute and all those other aspects of it too.
Yeah, I find that it's refreshing. I don't know. There's something about it that I'm so grateful to be a part of the time we're in for that aspect of things. There's so much more opportunity, and I'm sure you see a lot of that. You mention a few specific people in your talk and give examples of how they do different things. What are some of the most fun examples of freelancing that you've seen?
I know several people who live full-time out of an RV or on a boat, and they just travel when they want to travel. And the person has like a, Verizon jetpack Wi-Fi signal that they take with them, or they only stay in campsites that have Wi-Fi, and they do their work from there. They do their video conference calls and everything from there. So I think that it's so cool because you'll see so much variety. One of my VAs has been working with me for 5 years. He has a full-time job. So what he does for me, he does on the side. So for him, it's like he still wants to have very much that like full-time stable income working for a company, but then he gets to supplement it as little or as much as he wants outside of the office. And I think it's cool because you'll see people at all different levels. You'll see people who work 60 hours a week for themselves, or they only have 5 hours a week, so that's all they work. And it's just really interesting. You can, like you said, we live in a very interesting time, and you can decide what it looks like for you more than ever before. Even if you just want a side hustle, in the past, you'd have to go out like to the mall or to a retail store, see what they had available. They'd put you on their schedule when it was convenient for them. And it's so much different now because we can kind of decide, when and how we work and how much.
It's sort of the gig economy now, right? Even with the driving apps and that sort of thing.
Yeah, so many people are working as contractors and freelancers in different ways. And some of them will start off doing it for financial purposes. They're like, I need this extra money. Sometimes they're able to make a go of it full time. Or sometimes the people just prefer doing it, full time, and say, I'm willing to take the cut of not getting benefits through my job and all of that to be able to work for myself instead.
Yeah. Can I ask about the purpose of your book, the specificity of starting your freelance writing business specifically versus just starting your freelance business? Are you building your own team? And so this is another way for you to attract people who might want to work under you?
Well, this was actually the publisher's request that I focus on freelance writing specifically. They had a need in their lineup for a book just like this. They sort of had an older edition that was a little bit outdated with some of the information as far as marketing and things like that.
Mail to how many stamps to put on?
There was a chapter about fax machines, and I was like, we can just nix. We don't need that. We'll do a little redo there. But I've been primarily a freelance writer, and while there are some things that are common to all what I call online, like digital creative work, freelancing, there's also some things that are very specific to freelance writing. So you might need to have specific writing samples. And of course, as a writer, the way that you pitch yourself and present yourself on a website is very, very important because people are always looking at your words and how you express yourself. So that's why the book has that particular focus. But there's definitely things in there that are applicable sort of to general freelance businesses too.
Okay. And you mentioned something about looking for gaps. I think you said something, there was a study you quoted that I believe it was 21% of freelancers make 6 figures or more. Mm-hmm. And I'm guessing that those 21% are probably deliberately finding those gaps. How do you recommend that somebody go about finding the best opportunity and not feeling like, well, I use Fiverr and then I'm only making $5 a gig and then I'm only making $5 an hour and I can't live that way, right?
Yeah. Well, look for something that not a lot of people can do or want to do, right? So like my niche is writing almost entirely for attorneys. There are specific things you can and can't say as a law firm, and attorneys have there's a stereotype that they're difficult to work with. Most of them are not, but that stereotype keeps a lot of writers away from marketing specifically to attorneys. So it makes it easier for me to close. Plus, not everybody wants to research and write about the law. The other thing that's just a really good place to start is where are there actual gaps in the market where people need things? Where do people need assistance? Is there a problem that isn't being solved? And when you can offer something that's on a recurring or consistent basis, especially if it helps people make more money or save more time, those are great ways to get started in sort of a freelance career that you can scale. And some of it is trial by fire. Some people will be like, I'm a book ghostwriter. I write 5 books a year. I charge $60,000 for each one. That's all I want to do. Whereas other people would prefer working on smaller projects or doing something totally different. So it's about finding that perfect mix. Where do you solve a problem and what do you like doing?
And how do you suggest people do online research for that to actually see though, like, does this seem to be a smart and calculated decision based on what the market needs?
Yeah, go research your competition, first of all. Try to find the people who are performing most effectively. You can usually find that on LinkedIn or by doing a Google search to see how other people have set their businesses up. Sometimes you can even go and listen to those people when they appear on things like podcasts, or if they have a YouTube channel, they'll talk about how busy they are, or they'll talk about their process and things like that, which can be really helpful for you figuring out, is there enough demand? I also recommend checking out online job board sites. There's lots of them, Upwork, Flex Jobs, remote.co, and you can see what kinds of skills and jobs that companies are looking for. So sometimes it's a mix of full-time and contract work, but you'll get a really good idea of what is it that people need right now. And you might be able to go, oh, I didn't think about that. But, I saw like 5 jobs that ask for somebody who has Adobe Photoshop skills. I'm pretty good at Photoshop and I could take a couple courses to get better. And that's, the start of your side hustle.
That's a great idea.
Yeah.
What do you think people have a misunderstanding about that in terms of freelancing and the work?
Yeah, I think there's 2 opposite ends of the spectrum that come out. There's the people who think that this is a get-rich-quick scheme, and if you start today, tomorrow you'll be sitting on a beach with your laptop and you only work 30 minutes a day to make money. I don't know any freelancer who works like that. Okay, so there is actual work in it, and it's often not instantaneous. So you're going to have to be turned down a lot. You're going to have clients tell you no, you're too expensive, you're too cheap, whatever. You're going to hear a lot of no. So a lot of people get frustrated like on day 2 because they're like, Like, I thought this would be easier. And, then there's the other end of the spectrum where people just think that it's much harder than it really is. And they're like, oh, well, I need like 6 months to ramp up and build a website. Like, no, you don't need a website. Just get started today. Try to land a client. That's your best way to practice and see if you like this and if it pays well and if it's a skill that's in demand. Land one client. And that way, if you hate it, you only have to do one job and then you can say, I'm never doing this again. But it'll be a really good practice experience. So a lot of people just take way too long to get started, and it's really for no purpose.
Right. I love that idea of one client. I try to sort of preach the idea of microtizing things, at least for my life, to make it easier, even if that means I'm only cleaning like this pile, off the desk today or something. But it can become overwhelming to try to see that whole elephant and think, how am I going to finish it? Right.
Yeah. And I think people will talk themselves out of it because of that. It's like, take one small step in the right direction and you don't want to wait 6 months, 12 months to get started. Like owning a business in the past, sure, you did need that because you had to raise funding or you had to get a bank to approve your capital loans. You could buy the business or rent the office space, right? You don't need that anymore. So take what you have and leverage that before you start having to pay anything out.
What are some of the topics or fields of freelancing that you think are the most lucrative right now, just in case people are going, I have no idea where to start, but I think I probably have some skills, right?
Well, I think the amount of video content that's produced today means there's a lot of room for people in that space. So video creators, editors, animators, even people who do closed captioning, more and more websites and even online like teaching sites are going towards having captions on videos for people who are hard of hearing. So I think that's a really hot market. I think writing will always be in demand. It's a struggle that it's a skill that a lot of people struggle with. So there's always going to be a need for that. Graphic designers and web developers, app developers is another one. So I see a lot of people successful with that. And then one of the easiest ones to break into is becoming a virtual assistant. Essentially, you're doing administrative tasks and research and scheduling and calendars and email type of things, but you're doing it in a virtual basis. And for someone who's listening and going, I'm not a designer, I don't know how to edit video, that's a great place to start because you probably have some administrative skills that could cross over.
Right. Now, what about the people who may feel like, well, how am I going to make a living if I'm an American citizen living in the U.S. doing, VA work when people are hiring it out for $2 or $3 an hour?
I think it's really about how you position yourself. A lot of people who hire out for $2 and $3 an hour get results that are kind of worth that. So don't try to compete with the people who aren't your competition, right? Like I know that some of my clients could hire somebody else overseas and pay $5 for an article, but what they get back is probably not usable. So I'm not even trying to reach those people who are competing on price alone. It's like, do you want it done properly and do you want it thoroughly researched and error free? Then hire me. Like if you want to take the gamble with that person over there, like that, more power to you, but those aren't my clients, right? So, and like VAs that I work with, all of my VAs are based in the United States, and it's because of the ease of communication and their professionalism and skills. So that's something you can use to your advantage too. Like, hey, I'm in the same general time zone that you are, so it's easy for us to do phone calls, whereas somebody abroad, it's not going to be as simple to do that. And it's so much easier to communicate with someone that way.
Is there an sort of going rate right now for US VAs?
I would say most of your beginner VAs are going to charge somewhere between, like a real beginner VA might go $15 an hour, but I'd say more between $18 and $25 per hour. Sometimes VAs will also convert that over to retainers as well, or sell it in blocks and say, hey, you can buy like a 10-hour block of my time to be used anytime in the next 90 days, and that's $250 or something like that. And that's perfect for the person who might not have a ton of like ongoing tasks, but needs help here and there.
Right. And so are you currently then like sort of acting as an agency for VA work? Is that one of the things that you're doing?
Not really. I regularly refer people out for VA stuff. And I have kind of a network of people I know who do great VA work. And most of the time when I partner with a VA, it's for a long period of time. So a lot of my VAs have been with me for 2 years or longer. which is the preferred way for me to interact with them, because they get to know my brand, they get to know how I work, they even know my shortcomings, so they know how to kind of like circumvent my own shortcomings and help get projects completed. So often I am teaching other freelancers, though, how to find VAs, like how to know when you need a VA, what kinds of tasks do we give them, how do you write a job description? Because I think in the coming years, just the amount of people who own online businesses, VAs are going to continue to be in high demand.
And so it sounds like what you're doing is you're just helping people out when you know they have a need and maybe they need a VA, but also you're using them sort of as human leverage in your own business to get more done.
Yeah, absolutely. So because I do all my freelance writing work for my clients, I don't outsource my writing. I have to outsource lots of other things, how I post on my blog, how we upload my podcast episodes, keeping track of my calendar, making travel arrangements. That helps me stay organized because I can't be everywhere at once, but my VAs kind of help it make it seem as though that's the case.
Right. And then that's why I understand that you're saying you would like to work with them for several years, because once they get you in your flow, then it just makes your whole business run smoother and faster, right?
Yeah. Like the same VA has been making my PowerPoint presentations for years. So when I need to create one, I know that I just need to carve out like an hour to make the outline, and then I can pass it off to him. He'll make it exactly the way I need it. He'll drop all the pictures on the slide and do all the animations. So there's very little instructions needed. And that's the type of freelancer that I prefer to work with, is someone who's like me. They want to work on their own. They just do what they do and they get it done. And there's kind of like no fuss about it. It makes it really easy as a business owner to partner with them.
I totally forgot that you had a podcast. Will you share the name of your show?
Yes. Well, it's relaunching with a new name. The new name is going to be Advanced Freelancing, and it's really geared towards a lot of the people that I help coach one-on-one, or people who have more advanced freelancing concerns. So how to scale, how to deal with tricky clients, setting up really good boundaries, how to optimize your day and get the most out of your productivity type of thing. So that should be coming back this summer. Yeah.
Okay, great. Summer 2019.
Yes.
Awesome. How many episodes did you do in the past?
Oh my goodness. It was, I did at least a year and a half, and some of those were weekly, and a fair amount of them were actually twice a week episodes. So I don't know what number episode we're on now for rebranding everything, but quite a few. I did mostly an interview-based show in the past, but what my audience actually preferred were some of the solo episodes. So that's what I'm doing with my reboot.
Nice. Well, I look forward to checking that out.
Yeah.
Will let me know when you have it, and then we'll put it in the show notes. We'll update the notes with it.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, sounds good. What do you think are some important things that people who want to get into freelance work should consider when they're starting, and maybe they want to put their toe in the water first, like you said?
Yeah, think about what you're already good at. So that's a really good starting point. You don't need to be an expert in everything, but choose something that piques your interest or is a passion of yours. And that's a really good place to start. And like I said earlier, like try one project, try getting one client, and maybe you offer them a discount, or maybe you're just getting started and you offer your services to a nonprofit or a charity that you care about in exchange for exposure or a testimonial, so you can kind of get some experience and decide if this is even right for you. And that way, if you decide it's not, you haven't gone all in. You haven't committed your life to this. And it's very easy to say, yeah, I did that project, but I'm not interested anymore. Or I liked that, but I'd rather do this type of project instead. Experience is the best teacher.
Awesome. Do you have some special ways that you like to sort of moving into the work-life balance aspect of business? How do you unwind, and how do you were talking about boundaries earlier, how do you create those own boundaries for yourself so that you can enjoy life and shut down sometimes?
I have 2 cell phones. That's number one. So one of those is a business cell phone that gets shut off. So literally clients cannot, it's the only one that has an email account on it or any of that. So there's no dings and notifications that kind of distract me when I'm not working. I also set up expectations with my clients when they start working together of when I'm going to be in the office and available to do phone calls and things like that. I like to have a lot of flexibility in my schedule. So I typically work mornings on client stuff, and then I spend my afternoon doing other things like interviews or giving instructions to my team or pitching other places and that sort of a thing. But I like to do all kinds of activities, because we move a lot where it feels like we're always checking out a new culture and a new area. I also like to exercise a lot, and I have a pug, so I take him on walks and play with him in the backyard and all that kind of stuff. And my husband's a big horror film buff, so we go to horror conventions and Comic-Cons and all that stuff. So we're always doing something that I think it's good to get away from your office. Even if you have a home office that you love, I think it's good to get away from it sometimes too.
Remember to be part of the human race.
Yeah, exactly.
I wanted to hear more about so you mentioned the moves. I was wondering, I invest in real estate, and so I was just wondering if you've kept any of the homes that you've moved out of.
Yes, we have kept one. It's the first home that we ever bought. So we kept our home in Indiana and are kind of like renting that out to a family member while we are in our new state of Minnesota. So I've had homes. We've lived many different places. We love our Indiana home. We lived there in a college community, which is like perfect for me and my husband to have all the amenities of like the college and university life. We lived near Indiana University and just had so much like theater and cool stuff that you could always do. So I loved that. The other place that I really loved where we lived, we spent 3 years on the coast of North Carolina, and that was just like, we had a pool in our backyard. The coldest it ever really got was like 40 degrees. So of course I miss that sometimes too.
What city was that?
In Jacksonville, North Carolina, which is about an hour north of Wilmington, right on the coast. In fact, the town next to Jacksonville is called Emerald Isle, and it's just basically a giant, long, beautiful beach with all kinds of beach homes. So that was really great to like go and do walks there on the beach and collect shells and stuff like that. So we loved living in North Carolina. That was a hard one to move away from.
So when did you move to Minnesota?
2 weeks ago. We knew we were coming here last fall. My husband was getting out of the military and was interviewing all over the country. We flew to 10 different cities in 6 weeks for him to interview for these different positions. And Minnesota was the last one, and the day before the results were released, where they'll like call you and say like, you've been offered a position or whatever. And the night before we were kind of like, I said to John, I was like, I really like it here. I was like, this is going to be cold, but it's going to be an adventure. And we've never lived somewhere quite like Minnesota before. So I was like, let's do it. We can explore a whole new area of the country. So yeah, just a few weeks here.
Wow, that's so interesting. Yeah, I mean, I like that you have to think of it as an adventure, right? Or you can't get through it, I think. And so I love that you're really looking for the opportunities in this interesting and crazy life that you're living.
Yeah, like that. We've come to view it, especially during all the years my husband was in the Navy, and we were, we'd get a phone call and have an hour to decide between 2 or 3 different military bases. We've learned to take advantage of the adventure, and I really felt like this was going to be like the great northern adventure. We have dreams of moving back south again, but I was like, let's do one last shot. Let's do 2 years in Minnesota. We can see, everything in Minnesota and North Dakota and South Dakota and Canada. And like, then we'll feel like completely saturated with the great white north, and we'll be ready to go somewhere else.
Where are you in Minnesota?
We live in St. Paul, so that's one of the twin cities here. A couple of hours north of St. Paul and Minneapolis is the place where the coldest temperatures were ever recorded in the U.S. It's called Embarrass, Minnesota, and they've gotten as low as negative 50 degrees Fahrenheit. So we don't get that cold here, but there are negative 20 and negative 30 days, I've been told.
Wow.
Yeah. Crazy. I don't know if I'm ready. Like, I grew up in Ohio, but we get like snow. We just get tons and tons of snow there. So it'll be interesting to see how like bitter cold is different.
Yeah. And probably having to deal with like humidifiers and things like that too, because you can't really go outside, right, when it gets super cold.
And I've really been trying to figure out, like, what do people do with their dogs? Like, I'm going to have to ask the neighbors, like, I am not putting him outside in that. So what do you do for him to go to the bathroom? So there's all kinds of little things like your car. There's things you can do to plug in your car so it will actually turn on in the morning when it's that cold. It's like I said, it's going to be an adventure. So we'll have to figure it out as we go.
I live in Southern California, so these are questions I've never had to ponder,
Right. Yeah, most people don't. It's crazy.
Yeah, that's so funny. Well, cool. I've enjoyed our conversation. Do you have anything else you would like to share with the women who might be listening?
No, just, if there's something that's calling to you and you're thinking about trying out something as a freelancer, like go for it. Absorb yourself in all the free stuff that you can, books, podcasts, blogs, things that you can find, and just dip your toe in the water. Try one client, one project. No one's going to hold you to it any longer than that if you don't love it, but you could, I never would have guessed that I could be a full-time writer living from wherever and working for clients I love. So my only regret is that I didn't start any sooner. So check it out, see if it might be for you.
That's awesome. And where can people find you if they want to learn more about what you're doing? And you have a lot of free resources as well, right?
Yes, I do. So check out betterbizacademy.com, and we publish a lot of the content that I create there.
Great. Well, thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks. You too.
This is a public service announcement from Peace, Love, and Wine. Hey, Mermaid, are you feeling calm AF? If not, I have a solution for you, and it's free. Go to peaceloveandwine.com and grab your free self-care download by entering your name into the pop-up, or just go to the show notes and grab your Calm AF link there into your email, and we'll get you on your way to feeling good. Oh, yeah.